Welcome to our next class of Meseches Middos. We're starting chapter 5, the final chapter, getting closer to the end. It's also a short chapter, so we're really holding by the end. And this class is dedicated by Moshe Rebecca Belinsky in honor of his uncle.
Grandfather.
I'm sorry, grandfather. Thank you for the correction. Menachem Mendel ben Meir, whose yahrzeit is today. So it's very special that we're able to learn in honor of his neshama today. Also sponsored by Batya.
Yes.
Nobody said it.
Mother. Sarah Bas Ada, she should have her full shlema, complete and speedy recovery. And let's dive right in. We are going to go to our Meseches Middos text. And here we are. All right, everybody. Chapter 5. Very, very exciting. Very exciting. Now, we left off chapter 4. If you remember, we were talking about the dimensions of the grand structure, of the actual structure of the Bet HaMikdash. Look over here, the structure over here. And we are now going to talk about the dimensions of the Azara. The Azara is the courtyard from east to west, from north to south. The dimensions of the courtyard. Here we're going to have a top view illustration. We're going to give it a go along the entire courtyard, which includes the structure in it. And then we'll talk about some of the chambers and their functions here on the side of the courtyard. And so the Mishnah says, the entire Azara, the Azara means courtyard. There were a few courtyards in the Bet HaMikdash, but when you say Azara, just plain courtyard, we're referring to this courtyard of the Bet HaMikdash proper, with the Mizbeach, with the Mikdash in it. This one. Okay. So now, Orech, the length of it was 187, with a width of 135. Again, from east to west, front to back, 187. From north to south, or south to north, right to left, width 135 cubits. Okay? Heading over to our trusty AI ChatGPT. Let's get give me a new model. All right. AMA measurements. All right, let's go. 187 by 135. Give me something unique today. Okay, let's see. Oh, you see the size of the Azara. I already picked that up. As per Meseches Middos 2:1. See, wrong. You have to be very careful when you're dealing with AI to give you very wrong information as well, because we know that we're talking about Meseches Middos 5, chapter 5, Mishnah 1. But these measurements are accurate, and let's see what we have here. So, a concert stage could fit the entire stage, the dancers, the flames, and the flying stunts. Okay. Aviation runway, hold zone. The Azara could hold a large commercial plane like a Boeing 737 with room around it for maintenance vehicles. Okay. Super Bowl on Temple Turf with plenty of room for players, benches, fans, and a mizbeach in the middle. It's larger than the entire Azara is larger than the entire Apple Store. Has enough room to display every iPhone ever made plus 2 mizbachot. Okay, it's getting a little weird, this AI. SpaceX launch pad. All right, you get it. It's a very, very large area. And let's break this down. How do we get to the number 187? So, says the Mishnah, from the east to the west, 187, which includes the place where the Israelites, the regular Jews, right, non-Kohanim, could walk, is 11 amot. Back to our illustration right here. See where it says the court of the priests. So before the court of the priests is the court of the Israelites, of Yisraelim. 11 amot over here, as we discussed. The Kohanim, the place where the Kohanim walk, is another 11 amot, which is pictured over here. Okay, so we have altogether 22. The Mizbeach is 32 amot from east to west, as we described. Those of you remember, Mizbeach is 32. Okay, so now we're holding over here. 22 by 32 is 54. Between the Mizbeach and the Ulam is the lobby to the building, 22 amah. So that means you have, we're holding 54 plus another 22, which is over here, this space over here, from here, including the steps, up until the entrance of the Ulam. Another 22. So that's 76. And then the Heichal itself is 100, if you remember, right? It's 100, it's cubed, 100 by 100 by 100. So this entire structure from the Ulam all the way to the back is 100. So it's 176, which leaves at the tail end another 11 behind the building, which is called Beta Kaporet, another 11 over here behind the building, which is 187. So 187 from east to west. And our 3D tour will have this over here. Let's just walk the entire length. Over here, from the wall to this row of stones is where the Israelites are. 11 amot. Another 11 amot from here to the Mizbeach. Another 11 amot from here to the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach itself is 32. Here, from one side to the end is 32. Then we have another 22 between the Mizbeach and the wall, the structure of the building. Another 22. Let's continue along. The entire length of the building is 100. Is 100. And behind over here is another 11. By the way, the number 11 is quite, comes up 3 times here. Number 22, twice 11 once. So there must be some significance to that. But again, everything is exactly precise. And even in our rendition over here, you look at the tiles. You want to count the tiles? It's exactly 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Each tile is a cubit. So it's easy on our 3D tour. All right, back to the Meseches Middos. Now let's do Miatzafon Ladaram, from the north to the south, which is the width of the Azara. How do we calculate 135? Well, here we go. 135. The Keves and the Mizbeach are Shishim Ushtayim. Most of the, you have a 62 amot from the bottom of the ramp all the way to the end of the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach itself is 32, and the ramp is 30. So 62 from the bottom of the ramp until the end of the Mizbeach. Okay, that's 62. From the Mizbeach to the Tabot, 8. The Tabot are these rings on the floor where they would shech the animals. So between the Mizbeach and Tabot, another 8 amot. So that's 70. The place of the Tabot is another 24. The actual Tabot are 24. So that is 94, all the way till here. Between the tables, there were tables there, and the hooks, another 4. Okay, so that's 98. And from the hooks to the wall of the Azara, another 8. So from these hooks until the wall, another 8. So that's 104. So where do we get 135? Well, says the Mishnah, and the rest is between the kevish and the wall and the place of the hooks itself. So the 104 to 135 is 31 amot. So those 31 amot are between the ramp and this wall. There's some amot over here, and the actual place of the hooks, between this area and this area, you have another 31, which I guess doesn't need to be so precise, and therefore it doesn't give us exact dimensions. But between this wall and this wall, you end up with 135. Let's go to our 3D tour. We're right now behind the structure. Let's get to the Mizbeach again. Click through here. Okay. All right. So we have between the wall and the Mizbeach undefined amount of space. The Mizbeach itself is 30. The ramp. Okay. And let's get onto the stairs here. Okay. And 32, the Mizbeach itself. So that's 62. Then between the Mizbeach and the hooks, there's 8. The hooks itself is 24. Okay. From the not the hooks, the hooks on the floor. From the standing hooks to the walls, another 8. And the hook area and the tables and the unspecified amount in the beginning altogether is another 31, which ends up being 135 from north to south over there. Everything very precise. Once this thing is released, we'll not do it here. Once the thing is released, I'll challenge someone to actually count the tiles. 135 tiles from east to west. All right. Let's continue. All right. There were 6 chambers in the Azara. Now, if you recall, let's take this. We actually spoke about various gates, right? 4 gates on the south, 3 gates on the north, 2 gates over here. And as part of the entranceway, we had, for example, the Bet HaMoked, which was the place where the Kohanim actually slept, and in various other chambers. So when we say there's 6 chambers, there were 6 service chambers, but not that there were only 6 chambers. There are various chambers around here, but 6 ones we're going to mention as a closing to the whole tractate. 3 of them on the north, 3 of them on the south. All right. So today we'll talk about the ones on the north. On the north, you had one chamber called Lishkas Hamelach, the chamber of salt. The next chamber is called Lishkas HaParva, the chamber of Parva. Sounds like the word Pariv. We'll explain what these chambers are. It's called Lishkas HaParva. And then the third chamber is called Lishkas HaMadichin, the chamber of washing. Okay. Lishkas HaMelach. What was the chamber of salt? What was the chamber of salt for? There they would put the salt on the korban. So it is a law from the Torah, which we learn in the Chumash, that every korban needs to be salted completely before it's put on the Mizbeach. And so therefore you need a massive salting chamber. And that's where you had Lishkas HaMelech. Let's go check it out ourselves. Walking across the Azara. Okay. Giving it a walk around here. 3 chambers before us. And there's something on top, which we'll get to in a second. But let's do one first chamber here, actually, right here. All right. Lishkas HaMelach, chamber of salt. Here you had salting stations, many salting stations. And you see how it has very close access to the ramp, the Mizbeach, because that's where all the korbanot, all the pieces of the animal which were going to be brought onto the Mizbeach, they were salted very well. So chamber of the salting. Okay, this is Lishkas HaParva. Let's find out what that is. Lishkas HaParva, says the Mishnah. There they would salt the skins of the korbanot. So it's interesting, as we described, as I explained to you in short, I'm saying this is a tremendous amount of Talmudic discussion, because the korbanot, we have the whole Sefer Vayikra, really. The whole third book of the 5 books of the Chumash is practically dedicated to sacrifices. So it's definitely a big part of Torah study, and various different sacrifices and various different rituals and things that were done for the different occasions. But the skin of the animal, they had a very particular and interesting purpose. They were used as a salary for the Kohanim. A Kohen doesn't get a salary. A Kohen doesn't get paid for his service. And you know that a Kohen historically doesn't have property, doesn't own property. The rest of the Jewish people were given property, and the Kohen was not given property. They were given homes. They were given primary residence in 42 different cities scattered throughout the land, but they were not given property. They were not farmers. They were not that was the major source of revenue for, that was the dominant industry in ancient Israel was agriculture. Kohanim don't participate in that. They are dedicated to God. So how does a Kohen make money? How does a Kohen make a parnasa? So the answer is through various means. First of all, every single Jew had a mitzvah to give meiser, to give a tenth of their crop to the Kohanim. So to the Leviim, Truma to the Kohen, meiser to the Levi, different portions of all of their profits to the Kohen. This is besides the 10% that you give to tzedakah. We're talking about the times of Beit Mikdash, you give it to Truma. Challah is another example, right? We set aside challah, we make challah, we set aside challah. Back in the day, dough that was set that anyone making dough, which was definitely every day, very regular occurrence, didn't have ready-made challah. This was given to the Kohen. Bikurim, the first of your fruits, were given to the Kohen. So the Kohen was sustained by the millions of Jews who gave the gifts. The Kohen ends up getting 24 different gifts, which just sustains them. Now, one of them is the skins of the animals, which are split up by the division, as we described. Every week, another division of Kohanim would come in a 24 shift. So that means you basically had 2 weeks a year. You were called up every 24 weeks. That was your week to service the Beis HaMikdash. Amongst the Kohanim that came, the skins were divided, and they were very valuable, right? Leather. It's very, very valuable. So they could use it to, they could sell it and use it for income. So with saying that, there was a special room over here, right? This is on the floor of the Azara, right there, an access room for salting the various skins. I don't have a really good depiction over here, but salting the various skins of the animal, because that was needed in order to preserve it. You need to salt it and hang it and preserve it so that it remains usable in the future. Let's see if we have a picture of that anywhere here. Nope. We are not meriting a picture. There's pictures of other chambers going on, but not of this one. But this picture, keep in mind, because we're going to discuss that in a second. But you have here chamber of salt, chamber of hides, and then the chamber of washing. So let's go to the chamber of washing. It says the Mishnah, Um, the Mishnah says, a very important point, that on top of the chamber of the hides, Al Gaga on the roof was a mikvah for the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. I described to you that there's various mikvahs throughout the Bet HaMikdash. There was a mikvah designated for the Mitzorah in the Mitzorah chamber. There was a mikvah designated for the Kohanim underneath the Bet HaMikdash. There were probably dozens of mikvahs throughout the complex for different uses. People going to the Bet HaMikdash needed mikvah. I don't think there was women's mikvah, but definitely men's mikvahs all over. Women's mikvah are usually more discreet, not in public. But then there was a one mikvah in the Azara, like in the center of things, and that was designated for one person on one day. Only the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur will go to this mikvah. And why does the Kohen Gadol need his own mikvah in the Azara? And the reason is because, as we describe in the Yom Kippur prayers, we describe at length during the Musa prayers. Very fascinating description. Those of you who are familiar, every Yom Kippur we read it. We describe the service of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, and it turns out that he goes to mikvah about 10 times on that day. He switches out of his clothing 5 times, switching in between his special Yom Kippur vestments, and which were white completely, and his regular vestments, which contain gold and other materials. And he's switching between them because there's various rituals being done throughout the service that are non-Yom Kippur specific, and various rituals done in Yom Kippur which are Yom Kippur specific. So anything that is Yom Kippur specific, for example, going into the Holy of Holies, that 1 year experience, he actually goes in a couple of times, goes in 3 times to do various things. Anytime he's walking into that chamber, he's wearing his white special Yom Kippur vestments. But anytime he's doing another piece of the ritual, which is done it's being done on Yom Kippur, but it's also something you do on a regular day, he's wearing his regular vestments. And so he has to keep on switching between his white ones and his regular ones, white ones. And every time you're switching, you go to mikvah before, mikvah after. You go to mikvah various times. So he needs a mikvah in quick access. And this is the mikvah that he uses. And I'll show it to you in a second. Now, let's just go to the third chamber. So the third chamber is Lishkas Hamadichim, the chamber of the washing. Over there, they would wash the innards of the sacrifices. To wash it off from all the guk and the blood in order to bring it up to the Mizbeach. And over there in that chamber, you had a staircase that went to the roof of the middle chamber, the mikvah. So let's look at our 3D tour. So on top of this middle chamber is a mikvah. How do you get to that mikvah? How do you get to there? You need a stairwell from the chamber on the right. Chamber HaMadichim. So let's check that out. So right here, we have 2 doors. One door takes you to the actual chamber. You see there's like a staircase over here to the left. Over here, you see that staircase basically inside the chamber. Here was a washing basin to wash off the various elements of the korban. Now let's exit back to the Azar. Let's go through the other door. Okay. All right. Let's go up these steps. Everyone see this spiral staircase over here? All right. We're going to the Kohen Gadol's private mikvah. Here we're on top. Let's go over here. Whoa. You see that? Bird's eye view. You can see the Mizbeach from here. Here's the staircase coming up. Here's a bench or what have you. This is a place for his clothing. And then steps up. So this mikvah is it's a personal mikvah. You know, it's like a one-person mikvah. And it's all the way up here. Now, you would say it's not really so. Who wants to go to mikvah in the open over here in public? It's definitely not private. Well, guess what? You see this curtain over here? This curtain closes when the Kohen Gadol is actually going to mikvah. So that anyone standing in the Azara and during Yom Kippur, where there was a lot of people standing here watching the service, participating in the service, Kohanim all over, Leviim all over, no one could actually see him accessing the mikvah, and that's where you get this illustration here. See that? This illustration, you have the Azara, you have over here, and the way they put it is the stairwell is kind of outside the chamber. Again, the way we made it in the 3D tour is much more accurate, but at least you see it in a painting where you see Kohanim holding up a curtain. So the Kohen Gadol is going in, they're holding his vestments, his garments, they're aiding him. And this is all the people with their talisim during the Yom Kippur service. The Yom Kippur service was unique that the Kohen Gadol practically did everything himself and everyone watched. So he like led the service himself. But here's him entering this chamber, and there's a curtain here. But our depiction is probably much more accurate in terms of the space and in terms of the size and everything. You have a curtain here. Kohanim would close the curtain while he would go to mikvah. And this is, again and again and again throughout the service of Yom Kippur, he would use the mikvah. So where is this mikvah? Let's go back down, just so you see it from the outside. Back to the Azara. Right now, next to the Mizbeach. In front of us is the 3 chambers. 1, 2, 3. On top of the middle chamber, you have the mikvah. And the staircase is in the right, the chamber on the right, the chamber of the washing. You have a staircase all the way up to the mikvah on top. Friends, tomorrow we do the last Mishnah. The last Mishnah, which brings us to the end of Mesechet Middos. We're going to learn about the chambers on the left, learn about the chambers in the south, and we're going to learn some very interesting things that occur over there. And then that will be our last class. So tomorrow is going to be our final class of the series, which